Hi, welcome to this presentation. I am the co-founder and lead consultant for the Pacific Forensic Accountants. My name is Walter. Welcome to this presentation. This presentation, I will cover the practical examples of the United States of America. This will be the two cases, the background of the Ponzi scheme, and as well as the Benny Madoff, who started his pyramid scheme from 1960 to 2008 when he was caught, and then some examples on the Chinese pyramid scheme, and also we'll finish off with the example on Albania. Let's start with somebody by the name of Ponzi. Ponzi actually was an Italian. He migrated to United States of America around 1920 or 1919. He actually migrated with $2, but he has a very big vision. He wanted to turn the $2.50 into $1 million. So what Charles Ponzi did, well, apart from being working all over the places like working on the streets and in the restaurants, he finally developed a scheme. And he named after his name Charles Ponzi. Out of the scheme, he collected $9.8 million. This scheme involved around 10,550 people. That's including 3/4 of the Boston police force. 3/4 of the Boston police force actually joined the scheme that Charles Ponzi did established. Out from 9.8 he collected, because it is a pyramid scheme, he paid out 7.8 million in just 8 months in the year 1920 at Boston by offering profits of 50,000 every 45 days. So that's it. So we can tell that he sells a scheme that involves participants, investors, also include his police force. And also he paid out 50%. So after 45 days, he paid 50%. Now, of the 7.8 million, if we minus the 9.8, we can talk about this scheme as Charles Ponzi because it's one of the biggest in American history then. And because of that, it was famous for a scheme that named after his name. So we can tell that 10,550 people joined the scheme. They believe that their funds will be matured in 45 days and with a profit of 50. Like if you pay 10,000, you're going to take 15,000 within 45 days. That is 50% profit. So we can also estimate that out of 9.8 million he collected from these people, and he paid out 7.8 to participants who joined earlier or on top of the pyramid. We can also make a calculation that he pocketed around $2 million. So that was it. That's how Ponzi, the name Ponzi and the scheme Ponzi came about. That was in 1920. Ponzi scheme is basically an investment fraud where investors enticed with a promise of extremely high returns or dividends over a very short period of time. So that's it. That's what I've just explained. It's just about 45 days, 50 cents, 50%, and then that's it. So that's actually a Ponzi scheme because it started by Charles Ponzi in 1920. A few people invested in the scheme. Then as news of the offer spreads, more investors are drawn in. So started with few people, started with few respectable people. It depends. Started from the pastor of the church, started from the bishop of the church, started from the minister of the crown, started from anyone that is respected, or started from a father within a family, for example. Then the news will go on and spread and more investors are drawn in. So actually no money is being invested. That is the bottom line. No money is being invested. And the only return to investor is money from other investors, full stop. So he was jailed, completed his imprisonment, later deported back to Italy. So that's it. It's just simple as that. It's just a scheme promoted by people within our community to get the money and then sell it. And then when they sell it, they have nothing to sell. So that's it. That's 1920. Investors are paid exceptionally dividends of interests paid out from the deposits of growing number of investors. So like we said, as new investors are pouring in, then we have dividends paid out to the first people who join. Profits to investors are not created by success of the underlying business ventures, but instead are derived from capital contribution of other investors. Put it this way, he put the money in his suitcase, in the drawers, under his mattress. Then from there, as people continue to pay in, he put some of the money under the mattress and pay the people who actually he promised after 45 days. So this is it. This is how Ponzi started. That was in 1920. And you think the Americans learned? They don't. Benny Madoff, you can Google his name. His name is started his Ponzi scheme or his pyramid scheme around 1960 to 2008. He scammed or he defrauded universities, he defrauded banks, and defrauded multinational, multi-million dollar national corporations, as well as multi-million dollar individuals. Some individuals that Benny took money from them, we're talking about 1 million, we're talking about $9 million. Some universities, some banks, we're talking about billions. And this reached around 65 billion. In those years, 1960, 2008, he actually defrauded these institutions and individuals. It is quite surprising why it happened to institutions that had a lot of money already, individuals that are already millionaires. Well, it is very tempting, and sometimes we say that the poverty-stricken countries, they can or could be easily trapped into pyramid scheme, but that is not the case. There was no lesson learned from 1920, however. It happened in 2008. This is the biggest as described. So we can talk about a little pyramid scheme that's solved within our communities, within our villages, within our little towns and little Pacific towns and provincial towns. They are too small. We're talking about 1,000 or just near 1 million US. In this case, Benny Madoff, he lied of $65 billion. So what he did, he told these institutions and people, give me your money, come on, throw in your money, I'll give you the interest. So he mailed them, not by email, manual mail, telling them this is your balance. He never ever emailed them by email to tell them their balance, because these people will find out because they can access the system. Also, this thing began to uncontrolled in 2008. And remember 2008, that was the year of the global financial crisis. So when the global financial crisis struck, the investors started to looking for money. So they asked Madoff, give us the money. And that's when they found out that there was no money there. All the money had been gone. So he was prosecuted and he was jailed for 150 years. Actually, he died before the 150 years. He probably died around 2014, jailed around 2009, and they offered him 170 billion restitution, which means that any asset, any house, any whatever he held under his name, they will be taken up by the law enforcement agencies to give back to these participants. So this is a huge participants. I've talked about pyramid scheme, I've talked about Ponzi scheme, but this American one is very, very huge. It's so huge that it involves in $1 billion. And the people involved, they are also millionaires. So it's kind of really, really sad day for the economy as well as for the reputation of America as a nation, as a country that, pride on its American dreams and so forth. So it's kind of really sad. Now, out of this incident, 4 people committed suicide. One son committed suicide just because he was the same. The other one was a former commander in the military because he retired and he put all of his savings into this pyramid scheme. And then he committed suicide just because of that. The other one who committed was a multi-million dollar who invested $4 billion into this scheme, and he couldn't just accept it, like just overnight, $4 billion just wiped out from his bank account. So it drove a lot of issues and a lot of sad stuff. The summary of what's going on is everybody cooked the books or everybody lied about the records. Put it this way. Both regulators. Now, what we mean by regulators, we're talking about the reserve banks. We're talking about, in the case of America, I think it's the Wall Street, that's the regulator, financial institutions. And we're talking about employees, the people who are actually directing, who are actually taking up leadership, management, and also employees of those pyramid schemes. They all lied about the records. Instead of saying that, we are reduced by 1 million, they put it out that they have 21 billion in the account. So not only that, they lied about the records from 1960 to 2008, but also the regulators, the central banks, they were not proactive roles into this pyramid scheme. So what happened? You have assets freeze, assets from his wife, assets from his children, assets from the companies who benefited from this pyramid scheme. Legal cases were implemented for those companies who actually earn money, especially those who receive fraud money from this pyramid scheme. So these prosecutors, they are asking the courts to retrieve, and they actually retrieve, we're talking about more than $20 billion. But again, we are looking at 65 billion. I think the recovery at the time of this presentation, it was around between 20 and 30 billion. We are not talking million here. This is $30 billion. So that was it about the, let's look at Chinese. Chinese, as we can say, I always said is one of the growing economies, and that is, matching with the superpowers in terms of economies by the dawn of the 21st century. So if we look at Chinese, we can say Chinese for the last 20 years had, a history of producing a lot of billion and millionaires within this short period of 20 years. But then within China itself, a lot of population and a lot of people are struggling to make money. And you have a statistics here in 2006, you have 29,900 pyramid schemes operated in Chinese, and that was banned by the Chinese government. So this is another statistics. The other one in 2019 in Nanjing City in China, banned 10,800 pyramid schemes. So, like I said, I've discussed about the case of Solomon Islands, and I've discussed the case of other jurisdictions. And I think the lesson learned is not about the people learning the difficulties of losing investors. I think it is the choice of people really want to make money out of money, even though they have nothing or they have a lot of money. Given these two scenarios, is not one of which cannot be an immune to the temptation of pyramid scheme. So if you can look at these statistics in 2006, 30,000 that's been banned, and then you look at 2019, just last year, you have this 10,000 being banned in just one city alone. Out of these, you have 818 people jailed as a result of this thing. In another city, you have this pyramid scheme organization headquartered in Hunan, valued around $5.6 billion. So it's continuing. It's not going to be end. That's why I built this presentation, so that people are able to learn that pyramid scheme can occur within $100, $1,000, and we are talking about billions here. And we're talking about countries who are super rich, like China. We have billions of people there, and we have a lot of people who are struggling to survive. But we have also people who have a lot of money being victims of this pyramid scheme. So that's happening in China in 2006. So another pyramid scheme, this is one of the famous, which they call 503 pyramid scheme. It's actually referred to these 5 level and 3 stages. It's a very, very complex pyramid scheme. It comes in many forms, but it's actually a top-down management, which the management or the owners, they really want to get down to people to actually brainwash them and make them be members and fabricating all sorts of visions and formulae using what they have what they call a 20 articles of life elite. So they put it out like this is the way to good life, healthy life, and so forth. So you have to pay an amount before you join as they brainwashes as these people. So the participants are brainwashed actually. So if you look at what this pyramid scheme is doing, and then if you look at the trend of other pyramid scheme or other cult, religious cult all over the world, and if you can Google religious cult, they are almost like this 5.03 pyramid. It is a 3 stages. It's doing something, just brainwashing the members. So once members are convinced, then they will be paying a little fee to join. So that is how it functions to get money out from these participants. So around 570 US to around 10,500 US to purchase 1 to 21 virtual products, 5 levels from the bottom up according to the virtual products here in the network. So this is just a kind of cunning way to earn money out from these participants. And then 5 levels are E-level, that is internship salesman, cumulative share of 1 to 2 share, D-level business leader, cumulative share of 3 to 9, C-level business director, cumulative share of 10 to 24, B-level business manager, cumulative share of 65 to 599, and A-level senior salesman, cumulative share of more than 600 shares. So cumulative share, it means that if any year these investors they don't get the dividend, this dividend will recover in the next succeeding year. This is what it means by cumulative share. Your benefits to receiving dividends will continue to incur even if there are losses, even if you don't have dividends this year. So, like I said, that's how complicated. They make it complicated so that it is very difficult to find it as a pyramid scheme. But then, let's go back. We're talking about $15 million affected by these members. So the promotion of these three stages, the first stage is from internship salesman to business leader, and then to business director, and so forth. But however, at the end of it, we have detected 16 persons were prosecuted for this. So, as I said, it's not going to be end for China. It's not going to be end for America. It will continue. It will never stop. Let's look at another Chinese case. Shenzhen system. This one, they don't have any product sale, no real product sales. They centralize their accommodation. They actually have this infrastructure and unified classes. Then they put in living conditions within the accommodation. Then they impose strict restrictions on personal freedom. So that's it. It's basically a brainwash again. So it's kind of religious cult, but it's the other way around. But they do it so that they can receive participants' fees from the participants. But first, they brainwash these participants by this sort of activity. Now, in one of the products is Project 1040. It's what they call capital operation. It involves confusion, deception, and brainwashing. So it tried to implement kind of thoughts and teaching that will confuse and they were very deceptive and also brainwashing these participants. Isolate them, they insert authority and rules participants. So the pyramid scheme organizations carry out an all-round team ideological transformation from 5 aspects. So these 5 aspects is self-transcendence, change of mental model, instilling common vision, group learning, and systematic training. When every member believes the cause can succeed, they will abide by the rules of the business and act concisely. But even if by the time they believe, they already paid in their part of the contribution for the investment. Let's look at Albania. Now, Albania is a European country. Now, this European country has a pyramid scheme that encouraged by the government. So this one is quite a bit different because the government encourages it. The government participated, the government provoked, the government self-advertises and motivated people to join. So it actually occurred from 1990 to 1996. Now, the government exempted the pyramid scheme from a banking law which would have regulated them. So instead of letting a banking law taking over to look after pyramid schemes so that they can be investigated, the government exempted it. So almost the whole country, they took part in this pyramid scheme. That's in Albany. Some people, foreigners included, they sold their apartments to top up investments. That's how wars it is. And as a result of limited availability of alternative income generating possibilities within Albania, time then, because of these alternative income generating possibilities were running out, then it collapsed in 1997. So when it collapsed in 1997, this collapse has resulted in this pyramid scheme of around 1.2 billion US dollars. 1.2 billion is almost half of the GDP in Albania. That's how big it is. So you have a pyramid scheme. That's the very dangerous thing about this Albania pyramid scheme. It's promoted by the government and it also collapsed in 97, and then it's valued at half of the GDP in Albania. So why it took from 90 to 96? Albania then, in 1990s to 1996, it was surrounded by the former Yugoslavia states. Now, Yugoslavia at the time, between 1996, has a economic sanction by the UN and United States. Now, because of that, the oil in Yugoslavia was sent into Albania as a black market. Now, that black market of their oil industry from Yugoslavia actually is the injection of continuing liquidity in Albania. So you have illegal sales, you have arms and drugs and people smuggling across between Albania and former Yugoslavia. The oil embargo and black market existence had collapsed when US withdrew sanctions. So by the end of 1996, UN and US withdrew the sanctions. So when they withdrew the sanctions, by then it actually shut off these illegal sales of oil as well as movement of drugs and arms. Because of this removal of this economic sanction, then the economy of Albania collapsed because there is no money coming out from these things because it's actually sold for high price. And so it has a very huge negative impact on this pyramid scheme that is owned by the government. That's it. What's the story on Albania? This is how Albania fall into it. Let's look at the map, for example. So this is the map of Albania. Yeah. So this is Albania, border with Greece across the sea, with Italy, and these are the former Yugoslavia. Yeah, this one here. So Yugoslavia is composed of Macedonia, Kosovo, Serbia, and I think this one too. I really don't know, but this is the boundary, the area of the former Yugoslavia. So because the economic sanction on this area, so in order for this area to sell oil outside to the world, they black market it to Albania. So that's how Albania continued to be operate the pyramid scheme from 1990 to 1996. And sadly, when it was closed, the US and the UN closed off the sanction in 1996. That's how it collapsed. Can be done. So the rest of the story is about an economy whose pyramid scheme supported by the government in Albania, and also when it collapsed as a result of a value that is approximately equivalent to half the GDP of Albania. Thank you so much.